In 1996, Capcom released a game that revolutionized the horror genre in the realm of video games. A game about a group of S.T.A.R.S members attempting to find lost members of the Bravo team, only to be chased by infected hounds. They lock themselves in a seemingly abandoned mansion. However, things only get worse for Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, and the rest of their team when they find out that the mansion is too infected with the zombies of Resident Evil. This single title would lead to an enormous franchise, one of Capcom's most successful franchises at that. So today, on Grotesque Brain, we're going over 5 facts about Capcom's Resident Evil. When Resident Evil first started development, it was never meant to be an original IP. Instead, general producer Tokuro Fujiwara saw the game as a remake of another Capcom horror. Released in 1989, Sweet Home was a survival horror game created for the Nintendo Famicom system. It never made a release in the States, most likely because the game was based on a Japanese horror film by the same name. The movie, released that same year, was about a film crew who enters an abandoned mansion that belonged to an artist named Ichiro Mamiya. Strange supernatural events happen left and right as the crew is harassed by the spirit of Mamiya. Eventually, development shifted and Shinji Mikami was made the director of the project. The project then went under the name Biohazard. So why is it that in the States the game is called Resident Evil? Well, this is because a game released on DOS already had that name. So a contest was set up to decide the name of the project, and eventually Resident Evil was chosen. However, the game is still referred to as Biohazard in Japan. Resident Evil really did great things for the horror genre in the realm of video games. It was the first game to be defined as a survival horror, a term that paved the way for one of gaming's most popular genres. However, there are others that are now referred to as survival horror, thanks to Resident Evil. The already mentioned Sweet Home, Alone in the Dark, and Haunted House on the Atari 2600 could be defined as survival horror. Another great thing Resident Evil was responsible for was giving us Silent Hill. Konami's Silent Hill first started development as a Hollywood-like horror, but the development team, Team Silent, wanted to go in a different direction, making a game that would cater to the gamers' emotions rather than their wallets. Biohazard also led to the creation of another famous Capcom franchise. Devil May Cry originally started out as an action-oriented Resident Evil spin-off. While the game was in production, the development team saw how different the game was in comparison to traditional Resident Evil and decided to make Devil May Cry its own game instead. Albert Wesker is one of the most popular Resident Evil characters. He makes the most appearances throughout the series, even more than Chris Redfield. He's appeared in Resident Evil, the remake, Code Veronica, Resident Evil 0, Resident Evil 4, The Umbrella Chronicles, Genesis, Resident Evil 5, The Dark Side Chronicles, Mercenaries vs. Mercenaries 3D, Biohazard Outbreak Survival, Biohazard Clan Master, Punchy Slot Biohazard 5, Biohazard Team Survival, Revelations 2 and Umbrella Corps. While he does not appear inside Resident Evil 7 as a character, there is a reference to him in the form of a weapon. The Albert 01 is a Beretta 92F custom Samurai Edge, the same that Albert Wesker used. The gun is given to the player by Umbrella at the end of Resident Evil 7 to finish off the final boss. Albert also has made guest appearances in other games such as Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and its Ultimate version as a playable character, and SNK vs. Capcom Guard Fighters DS. Eventually a Resident Evil movie was released in 2002 and was directed by Paul Anderson, also known for the 1995 Mortal Kombat film, 1994 Shopping, and 2004's Alien vs Predator. The story is a bit different in that characters like Chris Redfield and Albert Wesker are indeed present within the franchise, but the main focus goes to the new character, Alice. Alice has never made an appearance in any of the Resident Evil games and was specifically for the movies. However, we could have had a different movie and possible franchise, as Capcom originally hired the now passed George A. Romero. George A. Romero is credited to starting the zombie subgenre in horror and multiple films such as 1968's Night of the Living Dead, 1973's The Crazies, 1982's Creepshow, and even a TV series running from 1983 to 1988 titled Tales from the Dark Side. George was given the opportunity to work on Resident Evil's live-action advertisements. Capcom later signed a contract with the infamous Universal Studios to start the film franchise. George actually got his secretary to play through the entire game as he took notes of everything he saw. Eventually a script was made, but Capcom rejected it, calling it terrible. From then on, the series was passed down to Paul Anderson. Most Resident Evil fans already know about the incredible remake of the original game on the Nintendo GameCube. But there were actually plans for a port for the Game Boy Color. It was announced in '99 and was said to be produced by HotGen Studios. By the year 2000, about 90% of the game was complete. But for reasons or lack of confidence in sales and performance, Capcom cancelled production of the game. For a long time, what was made was considered lost, until 2012, where a user on the site assemblersgames.com leaked the game files and made it playable for the public.